Good evening. I'm going to try to talk loud. Oh, no, I don't have to. Okay. I do want to make sure, let's do a couple of those housekeeping things that we have to do every now and then. If you would you please take your phone and make sure that it is not going to make any noise during the program. You've never seen a child's eyes get any bigger than when they have a solo and all of a sudden some Elton John or something starts playing in the background. So if you would please make sure you take care of that. And I would ask, if it's possible, if you're seated over in this area right here, if you could shut down all your phones over there if you can. I know some of you want to take pictures with your phones, but every now and then, if you've been next to sound equipment with a phone and all of a sudden it starts going, gee, 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 you don't want to have the little Morse code going while we're singing either. So if that's possible. I can't tell you how impressed I am with all the volunteers that came in and worked on what you see behind me. It is an amazing thing. Oh yes, thank you. Good. All right. It was amazing to see this thing go up. And I can't tell you how many there were. I have to go back and look through my pictures and see all the people that helped out. But if you have a relative or you did help out, would you stand up right now with this set? Any of you that did, yeah, stand up. Let me tell you something that happened yesterday. This is something where when it happens to you, you're like, wow. And then you run to tell somebody and they're like, really? Okay. Yesterday, as you all know, or maybe you don't, but the power was out when we came in to rehearse. There was an issue down the street, and SWEPCO came in, we went into the sanctuary to rehearse, and SWEPCO got it fixed, and we had a nice person come over and let us know, and so we came over here, and during rehearsal it kept getting hotter and hotter. We had the fans going and everything, the thermostat was saying, please get cool, and it wasn't happening. And after the rehearsal, Bill Bryant and I went out and looked at the outside units, and not a single one of them was running. And so we checked all the outside units, and of course in Texas that's awful. You know, the air conditioners are not running, even in the winter. But we went out there, and Bill was able to open up the breaker box, and not a single one of the breakers had been thrown. Nothing in here, nothing on the outside breakers. Everything was on, thermostat was set correctly. We could not figure out what was going on. I'm sure it had something to do with the power being knocked out real quick. But those had been trying to run for over an hour. And so Bill did the correct thing at St. Luke's. He went over to call Matt Monday to see what could be done. He knew about any other switches or anything. And while he was doing that, of course, I was just fairly exhausted about that point, getting ready to get this thing fixed up again, the rest of the way. And I just paused, and I was walking back out that door, and I said, Lord, I'm sorry, I really need to take a little more to appreciate all those that have helped out and everything that you have already done for us here. But if you don't mind, we really need your intervention at this point. And I walked down the sidewalk and turned around, and guess what happened? The outside units came on. Trust me, it is not because I have any kind of direct line. That's not the norm for me to have that happen. But it was one of those events where you know that God is involved in what you're doing. And I hope that you see that tonight, and what you hear, and what you already see, and what you're going to see. So let's find out, why did those chimes ring?
Once there was a small country where few travelers had ever been. In this country there was a wonderful church built high on a hill in the middle of a great city. On Sundays and on holidays, thousands of people would climb the hill. When they came to the church, they saw tall stone columns, dark passages, and a grand entrance leading to a long sanctuary. The organ was in the farthest corner, and it was so grand and glorious that when the organist played, people miles away would open their windows to hear it. But the most amazing thing about the church was the wonderful chime of bells in that great ivory-covered tower. It rose so far into the sky that even on a clear day, no one could see the top. Now everyone knew that at the top there was a chime of special Christmas bells not meant to be played by ordinary people on ordinary days. The bells had been there ever since the church was built, and it was said that they were the sweetest sounding bells in all the world. Maybe because they hung where the air was the freshest and the purest. It was the custom on Christmas Eve for all the people to bring gifts for the Christ child. According to legend, when a really special gift had been given, the sound of the bells ringing would echo from the tall stone tower. Some said the wind rang the bells. Others thought that only angels could set them ringing. The sad thing was that for many years the bells had been silent. Some thought that people were becoming careless of their gifts for the Christ child. No one had brought an offering special enough to deserve the music of the chimes. Every Christmas Eve, people still crowded into the beautifully decorated church, trying to bring a gift better than all the others. But they never sacrificed something they really wanted for themselves. The church filled with people who thought the wonderful bells just might be heard again. But each year, the people were disappointed. Although the service was splendid and the offerings were many, only the roar of the wind could be heard far up in the stone tower. It was Christmas time again, and everyone in the city was busy preparing for the celebration. Shops stayed open late, people filled the street, buying food for Christmas dinner, ornaments for Christmas trees, and gifts for those they loved.
Fire, wish
Now, far away from the city, there was a little country village, and from this village you could just barely see the tower of the great church, and then only when the weather was pure and clear. In this village lived a boy named Peter and his little sister. They knew very little about the Christmas chimes, but they had heard of the wonderful service on Christmas Eve. Between them, they made a secret plan to go and see the beautiful celebration. The day before Christmas was bitterly cold, with a hard white crest of frozen snow on the ground. Sure enough, Peter and little sister were able to slip quietly away during the afternoon. Although walking was hard in the frosty air, before night came, they had gone so far that they saw the lights of the city just ahead of them. As they came closer to the city, they saw far-off places were also going to the city for the great Christmas Eve service. And many of them were carrying gifts. Each one hoped his gift would be the perfect gift that would make the chimes ring again. Peter and little sister walked on, trying to hurry so they would not be late for the service. As they were about to enter one of the great gates of the city wall, they saw something dark in the snow near their path and stopped to see what it was. It was a poor woman who had fallen. She was too sick and tired to get to the city gates where she might have found shelter. The drifted snow had made a kind of pillow for her, and it looked as though she would soon be so sound asleep in the wintry air that no one would ever waken her again. All this Peter saw in a moment, and he knelt down beside the woman and tried to rouse her.
no use, little sister. You'll just have to go on alone.
Alone, but you'll miss the Christmas festival.
I can't go. This woman will freeze to death if no one carries her. When you come back, you can bring someone to help her. I'll rub her hands to keep her from freezing, and maybe I'll get her to eat some of the bread we have from our supper.
But I don't want to leave you and go by myself.
Both of us don't need to miss the service. You can find your way to the church. Remember to see and hear everything twice. Once for you and once for me. I think the Christ child knows how much I want to come with you to worship him. Oh, if you get a chance to go to the altar without getting in anyone's way, take this penny and lay it down for our offering when no one is looking. On your way now. Don't forget where you left me. I wish I could go with you.
Peter winked hard to keep back the tears as little sister's footsteps sounded farther and farther away, crunching in the snow. It was so hard to give up the music and the splendor of the Christmas celebration that they had planned for so long. Little sister continued the trip into the city, walking bravely, clutching the penny which she was to give as their gift to the Christ child. Little sister struggled to find help as she entered the city. People were rushing by her, trying to take care of last-minute errands while making their way to the great church.
Time for church! Time for church! Everybody hurry! The service starts soon!
Bustle, bustle, hurry, scurry, everyone is in the flurry now. Christmas Day will be a winner, how will I begin? Ah! Bustle, bustle, hurry, scurry, it's not
Hey there, youngster. What are you doing out here all by yourself after dark?
My brother and I were coming from our village to the Christmas Eve service. We found a poor woman lying by the north gate. Peter stopped to help her, so I came on alone. Peter needs someone to help him get her into the city.
You are a brave young lady. I will go help.
Oh, thank you! Now I must go to church and give our gift to the Christ child. So tell me, is it true what they say about the chimes in the tower? That they haven't rung for years and only the perfect gift will make them ring?
That's what my mother told me when I was a little boy. Long ago, there was a boy, a little boy, long ago, that little boy stood waiting here, eyes alone, waiting here beside the same bright town, waiting for the bells to come, waiting for so many hours he hoped to hear the bells sometime. Long ago, I was the boy, I waited here in the snow. Now I see another child is waiting for as ago. In my life, the bells have not been heard, never have they rang their song. But a whisper of a word and waiting oh so long. Maybe we'll be the one to hear the bells sound so clear.
Maybe me?
Maybe yours will be the gift that makes the chimes ring this year.
Maybe mine?
Maybe yours. Maybe so. Wait, did you hear something?
No.
Oh, I guess it was just the wind. Well, need to hurry on. The service is started.
Sister hurried to the church and found a place to stand in the enormous sanctuary. She had never seen such a place and had never heard such music as she heard that night. She even heard the children sing in harmony words of love and peace.
Listen
Then the minister preached a fine sermon on giving our best gifts to God and to others.
We have all received many gifts from God, our very lives, this good earth on which we live, our health, our friends, family, and much more. Christmas, we take special care to remember to be thankful for God's gift to us in Jesus. It is our custom to bring gifts to our church we use to help those who have very little. As we bring our gifts, let us remember the story of the widow's offering in Luke. Jesus looked around and saw the rich placing their gifts in the temple treasure. He also saw a very poor widow with 2 little copper coins. He said, I tell you, this poor widow put in more than all the others. The others gave to their riches what they had to spare. But she, poor as she is, gave all she had to live on. God, let us bring our best gifts to the Christ child.
The great procession began. The rich and great marched proudly toward the altar to lay down their gifts to the Christ child. Some brought wonderful jewels. Some brought boxes of gold, so heavy that they could barely carry them down the aisle. A brave knight laid down his sword. The country's most famous artist brought her finest painting. The great writer laid down a book she had been working on for years and years. The great musician brought her finest instrument. The master baker brought a loaf of her best bread. A wood carver brought his most beautiful work, carved from rare wood. Travelers brought gifts from far-off lands, gold and silver from the tall black mountains. Next, purest water from the shining rivers. And finally, the brightest blossoms from the flowering meadows. And last of all, the king of the country walked toward the altar.
All rise for the king.
He hoped, with all the rest, to win for himself the chime of the Christmas bells. There went a great murmur through the church as people saw the king take from his head the royal crown, all gold and set with precious stones, and lay it gleaming on the altar as his offering to the Holy Child. Surely, everyone said, we shall hear the bells now, for nothing like this has ever happened before. But still, only the cold winter wind was heard in the tower, and the people shook their heads. Some of them said, as they had before, that they never really did believe the story of the chimes. They doubted the bells had ever rung at all. The procession was over, and the organist began to play the closing hymn. standing by the altar holding up his hand for silence. Not a sound could be heard from anyone in the church as all the people strained their ears to listen. Then, softly but clearly, the sound of the chimes in the tower came swinging through the air. So far away, and yet so clear, the music seemed. It was so much sweeter than anything that people had ever heard before. The notes seemed to rise and fall far up in the sky. The people in the church sat for a moment to listen. They were as still as if great hands were holding each of them by the shoulders, staring straight at the altar to see what great gift had awakened the long silent bells. But all that the nearest of them saw was the childish figure of little sister, who had crept quietly down the aisle when no one was looking and had laid Peter's penny on the altar.
That's a terrific story of the widow's mite in a little different light. Now, I want to make sure that you all know that there is a reception over in the Family Center afterwards. And if you haven't had Miss Rochelle's cookies, you haven't lived here. Those are wonderful. And also, I know, and I already was talking to Miss Billy Sue Mims, I'm sure several of you would like to take pictures of your family members that are up here. You don't know, he was the king. He looked really regal. And there are several of these are wonderful costumes too. These people all put their costumes together or went out and got them. So I think, congratulations. So feel free to come up here as we get ready to leave and to take pictures as you want to in front of this wonderful set. And if you would, I hope that you go with this in mind. The spirit of Christmas is just that. As we all know here as fellow members of the family of Christ, that it's about doing what we know He wants us to do. It's not about laying out all the big cash, maybe even our time, except doing exactly what He wants us to do as best we can, with our hearts and minds in it. That is the height of love, isn't it? That is the same love that He showed us when He came knowing the suffering that He was going to face later. Amen? All right. Let's take some pictures.